Is anyone from a normal outlet?
Yeah, Mick, hi.
So we've just had a meeting with Mark Harper and his team. I would say it was a positive meeting in the sense that we've got rid of the bellicose nonsense that we used to have from Grant Shapps and his cohort in his era, and we're now starting to get a dialogue. So what we're hoping for and what Mr. Harper has committed to is giving us an outcome from this meeting, which will be a letter to me saying how he sees us going forward and taking forward steps towards a resolution. And we laid out to him what we thought he should do, and he's acknowledged some of that. And what we're chiefly asking him to do, you've heard him say that he's going to be a facilitator towards a settlement or a resolution of the dispute. And we've said to him that it's no good having these warm words. We've heard them from his predecessor, Anne-Marie Trevelyan, but nothing actually happened. So we want him to set down in writing what he's going to do about the mechanics of how a resolution will be facilitated, because at the moment we've even got doubt about the authority of the people we're speaking to, who are called the Rail Delivery Group, and they are telling us they have no authority to negotiate. They do not have a mandate, and they've even put legal challenges to us as to whether they can negotiate at all. So we've got a situation where 14 train operating companies are telling us they can't negotiate, and so is their industry group, the Rail Delivery Group. So I've asked him to set out in writing and clarify what the authority of these people is, and I've asked him to create a liaison group or a liaison forum, however they term it, at ministerial level, so that the industry and ourselves as trade unions can go and see them, or at least liaise with them about how a settlement can come about. And we've also said to them, we need pace in these negotiations. I'm sure the public, the travelling public, and the businesses around the country and the economy wants to see this dispute settled in a proper way, but we need pace. 6 months we've been negotiating at least with the train operators, and we have had not one document put across the table. That has to change, and I outlined to him what his responsibilities are as we see them, and his responsibilities are legally in the contracts they have with these train operators. He has got a legal responsibility for industrial relations and a responsibility to set their mandate, i.e. what they can say, what they can offer, and what they can negotiate on at that table. So I'm hoping he's going to do that hopefully today, and we can get back to the table as he's been demanding in the media from me and from my union. But he needs to clarify in writing exactly where he stands and where the industry stands when they are transacting with us in those discussions. So they need a new position, they need a new mandate, and hopefully we can get on with it. And we'll be looking to do that immediately. We'll be talking to Network Rail in the morning, and as soon as the Rail Delivery Group invite us over, we'll be getting on with that. So that's where we are at the moment. It's up to him now to give us some documentation about how we're going to carry this forward.
Will you suspend the strike?
Andy Bell, 5 News. It sounds like that was quite a positive meeting. How about as a sort of gesture, you could call off the strikes before Christmas?
Well, we called the strikes off 2 weeks ago. We gave a 2-week period. It's gone past that now. It's nearly 2.5 weeks, where we were told we would get a tangible outcome. We would get commitments and proposals. We got none of that. So, once bitten, twice shy in that sense. We've also not had any strikes since the beginning of October. So there's been ample time for this lot to get their act together, along with their industry partners, as they describe them, the people that they contract to run the railways, and they've done nothing. And we think their problem is that the Treasury is pulling their chain, and they're not independent actors. Now they've got to assert themselves as an independent department and get to grips with the crisis that's been created in our industry, not just on strike days, but every day is a crisis in our railway. So we need to resolve the industrial dispute and also the organisational problems that has been created since privatisation.
Mick, Christian Hugo from LBC. It sounds like there's been a lot of admin today. Fundamentally, what our listeners will want to know is, are we any closer to these strikes being called off? It doesn't sound like that's the case. No,
we're no closer. We won't be any closer till we have a reasonable offer on the table that we can put to our members. He's not going to give me that offer. He's got to get his agents to do that. But they've got to sort out what their role is in this dispute. If they're going to negotiate with me, they have to have the authority to negotiate. At the minute, that authority has been withdrawn from them. So we've got a dispute here with employers who are not allowed to negotiate. He's got to clarify that in writing to us and perhaps to them, and that's his role. He is the facilitator, as he's now calling himself. So he's got to show us what that actually means, some mechanics of how this is going to progress, and some timelines of how we're going to progress the discussions.
Mick.
Go on, let's go there. Hang on. Oh. It's Farage here. Because if he is, I'm not talking to you.
Do you risk rail users simply going elsewhere and potentially after the strike, not coming back to the railways? When you desperately need people to come back, is there a risk of shooting yourself in the foot?
No, there's no risk of that whatsoever. We have the complete support of our membership, as shown in the ballots. We have support from the public and even the travelling public using these trains. The people that have lost the credibility are this lot who are trying to run a railway through a level of incompetence we haven't seen before, and the train operators are only interested in profit. They made profit throughout COVID, and they made profit throughout these disputes, where they have been indemnified for every day of strike action. This lot in the Department for Transport have been paying all their costs, while all the businesses in London and all across this country have been suffering losses, while the train operators have had all of their revenue protected by this government. Right.
Mick.
Is anyone from a normal outlet?
Yeah, Mick, hi.
Morning Star on here. I was from Sky News.
Yeah, go on.
Still believe the government has been guilty of blocking negotiations, blocking a deal over the weekend. Did you ask the Transport?
I asked them that precisely, and they couldn't give me an exact answer. It is being blocked because they can't provide answers to the employers. They say, and you've seen it last night on TV, that it's for the employers to negotiate. The employers say to me, across the table, at this distance, I cannot negotiate because I don't have a mandate. I have a mandate for my members, and I can tell you what it is. It's to secure their jobs, to secure conditions on an agreed basis, and to get a decent pay rise. The employers don't have that mandate. They don't even know what they can propose to me. That is a completely surreal situation where nobody knows what's going on when they enter a room. Everybody's demanding that I attend talks. I get an appointment to go to talks and they cancel it with 55 minutes notice and say we haven't got a mandate. Anyway, let's go around this way. Go on.
So I was actually going to ask a very similar question. So you do believe then, I mean, I was going to ask if you put it directly to Mr. Harper, did they block the deal over the weekend? You mentioned you might do that. Did he?
I did put that to him. I've told him that the employers are telling us that the Department for Transport are the blockage. He is saying that that's not quite the case, but I will find out. So somebody's got to find out who is preventing proper negotiations leading to a proper settlement of this dispute. I don't care if we ever find out, as long as we get a way forward and then we can get on the business of running a railway and keeping our members and the public happy.
Ben from the Times, what are your concerns about the authority of the RDG? Do you just believe that they can make a deal, they can't make a deal?
I don't know. The RDG have convened these meetings. They've written to me saying they want to propose things on jobs, pay and conditions, but then they've got their lawyers, Eversheds, to write to me saying they're not in collective bargaining and they cannot do collective bargaining. And then I get the employers, the 14 employers, writing to me saying we're not in collective bargaining either. So this is a completely strange and surreal situation where nobody wants to. I'm responsible for my union and I stand in front of you and take whatever you want to throw at me. Nobody from the employers is prepared to stand in front of me and take the responsibility for settling this dispute. That's what we need. We need somebody of authority, which has to start with the Secretary of State and the Rail Minister, who I want to work with and work with positively, to take the responsibility for settling this dispute. At the moment, we're riding a bicycle without any pedals. So it's ridiculous.
Discussions with the Network Rail have further progressed than with the 14 train companies.
Well, Network Rail have at least made an offer, and I've asked the Secretary of State to give them more licence, to unshackle them, to get into proper negotiations, to put some stuff across the table that they know that we can develop, because what they've put across the table at the minute is completely unacceptable to the men and women who run the railway.
Can your members afford to carry on striking it? They're literally losing thousands of pounds.
Well, nobody can afford to go on strike, but our members are fully committed to the action because they've just voted for it in very heavy numbers through the anti-trade union laws that your newspaper campaigns for to suppress human rights and civil liberties in this country. Anyone else?
It's a bit unfair, isn't it, to carry on asking striking when they're literally losing, what, £2,000-3,000?
Well, we've asked them for a ballot which you support, and they've answered that question through that ballot.
Mick, Simon Calder from The Independent. What's your advice to passengers who are hoping to travel in December and January, and indeed want to plan anything with more than 2 weeks' notice, which of course they can't do because another strike might be called?
My advice is to get in touch with your MP, chiefly the Conservative MPs, that are holding out for the suppression of trade unionists and the suppression of wages and terms and conditions in this country, and urge those MPs to get these ministers to get us a settlement in this dispute so we can get the railways back to normal and we can have the services running freely and properly over the Christmas period. All right?
Can I clarify, you said that the government won't give inflation-beating rises. Do you think he can change his mind on that?
Well, we'll deal with that in negotiations. You lot in the media are obsessed by pay rises. My members are telling me, you've got to secure me my job and you've got to get me a set of terms and conditions that are acceptable, and then we can talk about what we're getting paid. If you haven't got a job, you don't get a pay rise anyway. And if you get a set of terms and conditions that are intolerable, you probably won't want to keep that job in the first place. So when we settle the important issues about who's going to work on the railway, how we're going to run the railway, then we can work out what we're going to pay the people that are operating it on our behalf.
Right. Robert Wright from the FT. Network Rail say that they've got more volunteers and they're looking for redundancies. So they say that, you know, there are people who would be happy to leave, more people who would be happy to leave Network Rail than they're actually looking to lose. So they say there's, you know, there isn't really an issue about job security.
Well, we'll settle the issue of job security, but they've got to work out what their organisation is. It's all right saying who wants to leave. You've got to work out who it is that you need to leave, who you need to retain, and how the industry is going to be organised. They haven't really got a coherent plan to do that, and they certainly haven't got a coherent plan that allows our members to have a decent work-life balance. And they haven't got a plan that ensures the safety of the railway, because their plans are predicated on the idea that you cut jobs, and the way to do that, you cut 50% of the maintenance inspections on the railway. That's not acceptable with the way that the railway's been constructed recently, and the accidents that we've had due to weather and all the rest of it. We need boots on the ground looking after our railway with proper terms and conditions. Right, anyone else?
Can I just clarify, you mentioned that you asked the government to set out the right things for what they're doing and also create this liaison group. Did Mr Harper agree to that today? He said he will do that.
Say that again, to set up what?
So you asked them to set up plans in writing about what they do, and then also create this...
So he's committed to writing to me, hopefully this afternoon, setting out how he sees it. I've given you my version, I accept that. But what I've learned as a negotiator, there's a big difference between what comes out of the mouth and what gets written down with the pen. So we'll have to see what he says. I'm hoping that he will be constructive and that we will have direct ministerial involvement in monitoring this process. I don't expect him to be at the table with me. He's probably had enough of me for today and for the future. But we've got to work in the sense that they're engaged in the process, that they're enabling their agents, the employers, to have a proper process with us so we can get an outcome. Now he's going to set that down in writing and we'll see what it says.
And create that liaison group, so we'll do that?
I'm hoping to. That's what we suggested to him, and he didn't say no. And he said he'll consider it and he'll set down his position after this meeting. All right?
Yes, one more for Sky News.
Go on.
You've said you're not going to be the Grinch, but why not play Santa for the passengers and give them an early Christmas present, and if not call off these pre-Christmas strikes and move them to another date?
Because if we call off the strikes, we'll never get a settlement. We did that 2 weeks ago. We've changed our dates in response to public opinion. When the Queen passed away, when we had the Poppy Day, we've done other things. We have not had a strike for 7 weeks, and nothing has happened. So anyone that's been involved in industrial relations knows that there's got to be leverage and pressure at the table from both sides, and that will create the compromises and the resolutions that we're all looking for. If I take these actions off without any outcome, my members won't forgive me for doing that, and we know that the pressure will be off all the parties, including us, because we've got pressure on us as well, and we want to get to a settlement. And I've given a commitment to my members that until we get a tangible outcome that they can consider, the action will remain on. Now, the quicker we get to dealing with that, the better for everyone. Okay? All right? Are we all right, John? Okay. See you all soon. Have a good day. Cheers.